We have 2 more sets of PVC window trims to build, and those are for our dormers. We didn't talk a ton about the details of how we built all the rest of our window trims when we did them, so I thought it might be appropriate to do a whole video dedicated to the nitty-gritty details of how we put these together. Any good project starts with a plan, and this is the plan for these window trims. We came up with this after looking at some other pictures and doing some experimenting and trial and error to see what we liked best. And this is the basic formula that we used across all of our trims. These trims will be a little different though for the dormers because the heads and the sills, we don't have the room like we do with all the rest of the windows. So these will be 1x4s instead of 1x6s like the rest of them were. We've written out all the measurement formulas and assembly steps in an easy to follow PDF that walks you through how to make these same trims for any size window of your own. It's available on our website. Feel free to check out the link in the description or the pinned comment. With all those measurements in hand on my cut list, I'm gonna go ahead and batch cut all the pieces. I'll bevel whatever I need to on the table saw and cut the rest with my miter saw. PVC is a pretty soft material, so the first step in making these trims was to inspect all the stock and make sure we are using the best side with no dents or spots that can't be cleaned off with water or rubbing alcohol. Most of these defects disappear with some distance, but this is just us being overly picky engineers that can't let any detail go. With all the pieces cut and beveled, now I'm going to put a couple pocket holes in each side of my window jambs. This will hold everything together, especially as the glue is drying. Oh my gosh, why did I do that? I'm stupid. Getting the position perfectly symmetrical is not really that critical, just as long as we're getting 2 holes in there. Before I can assemble the full frames, I also want to pre-assemble my headers and my sill with the top cap and the sill nose respectively. This is a pretty easy process. I'm using AZEK glue. It's a clear PVC cellular adhesive glue specific for this material. Coating the whole top edge of my top header. I've marked a 1/2 inch in on each end of my top cap so I know that it's sitting where it's supposed to be with the 1/2 inch overhang. And then I'm using 18 gauge brad nails just to keep it tacked until the glue sets up. Then I'll do the same for the sills. I'll put glue on the back side of the 1x2 and then I'll actually drive nails this way into the sill piece. I just got to be really careful that I don't drive them outside the face because you would see them very obviously in the finished assembly.
Brookie, we're in the video. Say hi.
I'm using my trailer as an assembly platform here, and we are finally ready to screw these things together. I'm gonna put a light coat of glue on the butt end before I screw it together, and then I'm using these Craig Blue Coat exterior grade pocket screws to make the connection. This is the tricky part, getting everything held perfectly aligned. We're losing daylight. It's fall now. So it's what, like
5 p.m.
5 o'clock and it's dark out here. I always use the screw to kind of pre-drill a hole a couple times before I actually put it in. Helps keep everything snug. For the header piece, I made a mark 3/4 inches in from this end, and that is what I'm going to line up with this edge of this board. Move the operation inside so we can continue working. The last step before we hang these window trims is I want to paint all the exposed cut edges. This PVC only has a finish on 2 sides from the factory. Anywhere there's an edge or if you cut into it, there's an open cellular structure that looks exactly the same from a distance, but up close it actually gathers dirt quite easily. So I just want to fill that open cell structure and cover it with some exterior grade white paint. And I'm thinking that will keep it looking cleaner and whiter over the long term. Painting just gets me in the zone for some reason. Time to put some tunes on, jam out, and do some painting. Now it's time to hang these things up. I've reworked my skid steer platform a little bit differently from what I used for the rest of the dormer siding. It's sitting a little bit further out now, and I should be able to walk the window trims right up that ladder. But before I do that, I need to infill at the top and bottom of the windows with a little strip in order to give something for the trim to fasten to. The backing for these dormer windows is a little bit different than all the rest because it's PVC sheet on top of rain screen. For all the rest of the trim, such as this window and this door, I actually built a 3/4 inch sub trim and ran that around the perimeter of the opening, and that is what the window trim is fastened to. I did this because I came up with a detail that doesn't use any exterior sealant around the windows. I have more details on this in our flashing video. But the bottom line was I didn't want to put the window trim directly up against the wall and then just butt siding into it. So I needed to create a little bit of a pocket and build the window trim out. I'm doing something a little bit different on the dormer windows because the trim is going to lay right over top the PVC sheet, which is right on top of a rain screen. I'm basically going to replicate the siding that's on the sides of the windows above and below as well, just with a thin strip. So I took some scrap PVC and I ripped it into about 3¼ inch strips, and then I'm going to be using my Slicker Max rain screen, just kind of stapled on the back of that to start with, but then I'll put that up against the wall and nail it right in. This will still give some breathing and drying room beneath the trim in the case that any water would ever get behind it, and it allows something solid for the trim to fasten to. Oh, jeez. Don't fall off the ladder, Alex. Take that circular saw and slice 1/8 inch off this. Elena made sure the trim was evenly spaced around the window with about a 1/16 inch gap all the way around between the trim and window frame, then I drove in all the Cortex screws. I think I'm going to break my rule of no sealant on these windows and put a bead of Lexel between the trim and window frame just to make sure any water running down the face of the window makes it over the sill and drip edge. Since these dormer windows don't have the same sublayer that all the rest have, I think that will add some extra protection. That's one down. We think it looks really good. We're kind of torn on whether or not to put a batten on either side of that window. It's a 19-inch gap between the trims, and the typical batten spacing is got a 13.5-inch space between them. They're 16 on center and the batten's 2.5-inch wide. So if we put a batten up there, and especially if we centered it, the space is gonna be really narrow between it. It looks kind of weird, I think. If we're gonna do it, I think we're going to put it off center so that the distance between the batten and the corner is the same on the front as it is on the sides. I actually think it looks really nice without any battens right now, and if we put a batten up, we can't remove it later because there's gonna be holes there. So I'm thinking we'll live without a batten up front for a little while, see how we like it, and then we can always add one later down the road. Now we just need to repeat this exact process on this dormer. To make life a little easier on this one, I'm gonna start all the screws on the ground, so when we get it up there, we just have to drive them in. I almost forgot, we need to put our backing strips up. So first step, nail gun. I think you might need to just plug the compressor in because all the rest of the nails. With the last dormer trim mounted, we are officially done with window and door trims on the house. We are totally in love with how classic and elegant they turned out, and we would love to see others copy this design on their house. That's why we put together step-by-step plans on how to recreate them for any size window. Find the link to the plans below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.